Good morning, students. Welcome to Zoology webinars for Model School for Senior Intern. Children, now in all the second year, we are learning about human anatomy and physiology, isn't it? We learned about various systems. But any idea which system will make us move from one place to another? And not only movement, not only locomotion, but they give us specific shape and size to the human beings. Do you have any guesses? Yes, is nothing but muscular and skeletal system. So today we have we have with us Prasanna ma'am. She is PGT from Munakala from Suryapet district. So you all are very familiar with the ma'am. Ma'am, please welcome. Good morning, ma'am. Prasanna ma'am, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, ma'am.
Yes, please take over the session.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Hello, students. I'm feeling very great to be interacting with you after a long gap. And today I would like to present you an interesting topic which is useful for your competitive exams as well as the IB. Okay, let's move on. So I hope you are observing a person on the screen. Can you guess what this person is doing? Yes, of course, he is walking. And you all know that you are familiar that human body is made up of with total 11 systems. Out of 11 systems, 6 are the fundamental systems. So those fundamental systems are also you are familiar. They are nothing but digestive system, respiratory system, transportation system, excretory system, reproductive system, and last but not the least, nervous system. Besides these fundamental systems, the other systems are also there in our body, all together coordinating and functioning very well for the better survival of an organism. Can you guess the systems that are integrating to perform such activities as a person is doing here? And what are these activity? What is this activity which is done by the organism called? Yes, of course. They are nothing but the locomotor movements. The locomotor movements are the very essential activities exhibited by organisms, and these locomotor movements are contributed or integrated by two systems, closely related systems. They are nothing but our muscular system and skeletal systems. So muscular and skeletal systems are the two integrating systems that provide locomotor movements in organisms. So today's our talking points would be, so I would like to discuss the differences between movement and locomotion, need of performing locomotion by the organisms, why organisms have to perform such locomotory movements. So what is the need that we are going to discuss? Types of movements exhibited by the cells. Only locomotor movements are exhibited by the human body, or inside also we have so many trillions of cells that are organized to form different systems. Those cells are also exhibiting certain movements inside our body that we are going to discuss today. An introduction to muscular system, importance of muscular system, history behind the discovery of physiology of muscle contraction, because everything has a beginning. So before today the muscular system and its functioning has become cup of tea to us, but before that it is the scientists have put their efforts to provide such a knowledge to gain or to understand properly how the muscular system and skeletal system together perform well for the functioning of the body. Types of muscles in human beings, properties of muscles, structure of skeletal muscle, ultrastructure of skeletal muscle fiber, structure of myofibril, structure of contractile proteins, triad system, and motor unit. So these are the topics I would like to present you today. First, let us discuss the difference between movement and locomotion. So what is movement and what is locomotion? Daily you are sitting in your classroom and you are observing your teacher taking the class. If he stands in a particular position and if she only moves his or her hands or jaws or whatever it is without changing the location or without changing the position, such activities together called movement. So in simple, movement is nothing but change in the position of body parts. Okay, only change in the position of body parts without changing the location is called movement. Example, movements of our limbs. Limbs are nothing but forelimbs and hind limbs we have. Forelimbs are nothing but hands and hind limbs are nothing but the legs. Only just without changing the location, if the angles of the body parts are changed or position of the body part is changed, that is called movement. In second example, jaws. While we are talking or eating, whatever it is, the jaw movement is also a kind of example for movement. Then blinking of eyelids. Blinking of eyelids is also a kind of movement, and inside while we are talking or swallowing, the tongue also changes its position, and that is called movement. And what about locomotion? It is clear that movement resulting in change of place or location along with a change in the position of the body parts. If the organism changes its place from one place to another place or changes its location from one place to another place, that is called locomotion. The example for locomotion are walking, running, climbing, flying, swimming, etc. I'll repeat again. Movement is nothing but change in the position of body parts without changing in the location. Okay, locomotion is movement along with change in the location is called locomotion. So let's move on. For example, you have already studied these two organisms in your first year, that is animal diversity 1, paramecium and hydra. The paramecium is a unicellular organism which is commonly called slipper animal cule because of its slipper shape, and this name slipper animal cule was given by Leeuwenhoek. This paramecium, all over its surface, it has minute or tiny hair-like structures called cilia. Whenever this paramecium wants to move from one place to another place, it needs certain locomotory structures. The locomotory structures present in paramecium are the cilia. So these cilia not only helping in locomotion, they also help in movement of food through cytopharynx. Cytopharynx is nothing but this blue colored structure you can see here. So the locomotory parts of paramecium not only taking part in locomotion, they also help in movement of food through cytopharynx. Then coming to hydra, this hydra is a sedentary animal which lives attaching to the substratum. It cannot move from one place to another place, hence it is called sedentary. Though it is sedentary, it can procure its food material. So how it can collect its food material? By certain movements. So what are the structures that are helping in movement in this animal? Here on the above or anterior end of this hydra, there is a small opening at the center called mouth. Encircling the mouth, certain finger-like projections are extending which help in collection of the food material like this. So these finger-like projections are called tentacles. What they are called? Tentacles. So by the movement of tentacles, they are just changing their position. They are just changing their position or angle of their position. But they are not changing their location. They are not moving from one place to another place. They are just simply attaching to the substratum. Hydra is attaching to the substratum, and by the simple movements of these finger-like projections called tentacles, this hydra can procure food material, or it helps in capturing of the food material. So here you can understand the difference between paramecium and hydra. Paramecium is a unicellular organism. It belongs to the phylum Protozoa, whereas hydra is multicellular and it belongs to phylum Cnidaria. In paramecium, cilia are performing two functions. One is locomotion as well as movement of the food through the cytopharynx. Whereas in hydra, tentacles help in capturing of its prey. In your textbook, it is given in hydra, tentacles are helping in both locomotion as well as in capturing of food material. It is wrong. The tentacles, hydra is a sedentary animal. It cannot move from one place to another place. So tentacles are taking part only in capturing of its prey. Prey is nothing but the food material. Yeah, fine. What is the need of performing locomotion? Why animals have to perform locomotion? Locomotion, what is the definition of locomotion? Just now we discussed, it is nothing but change in the location along with the change in the position of body parts. If organism changes its location, or if it is moving from one place to another place, then that is called locomotion. Why the animals have to move from one place to another place? What is the need? Let's see. So every organism need performing locomotion in search of food material, in searching of shelter, to search of its mate, opposite sex, for reproduction and continuing its race or generations, and to search of suitable breeding grounds and favorable climatic conditions. Every organism it tends to search favorable climatic conditions or to escape from enemies or predators. These are the needs of an organism, why an organism wants to locomote or change its place from one place to another place, and that is called locomotion. So what is the need of performing locomotion? In search of food, shelter, mate, suitable breeding grounds, and favorable climatic conditions, or to escape from the enemies or predators. Types of movements. Only muscles and bones are moving in the body, or any other cells? What are the different types of movements that occur in human body? So in human beings, three types of movements are exhibited by different cells and different structures. They are amoeboid movements, ciliary movement, and muscular movements. The cells of the human body exhibit three main types of movements. They are namely amoeboid movement, ciliary movement, and muscular movement. So let's see which cells are exhibiting amoeboid movement and which cells are exhibiting ciliary movement and which cells are exhibiting muscular movements. It is clear that the muscle cells are exhibiting muscular movement. Then what about the remaining two? Let's move on. The first type of movement is amoeboid movement. So there are some specialized cells in our body such as macrophages and leukocytes in the blood. These macrophages and leukocytes exhibit a special movement called amoeboid movement. And this amoeboid movement is affected by pseudopodia. I hope you all familiar with the term amoeba. Amoeba is a unicellular organism which shows irregular movements. So those irregular movements are because of change in the cytoplasm, concentration of the cytoplasm that aids in temporary development of finger-like projections on the surface of the body. Those temporary outgrowths on the surface of the body are called pseudopodia. Here the macrophages and leukocytes are also exhibiting amoeboid movement, means it is making sense that These cells also possess some finger-like projections on the surface of the body due to changes in the cytoplasmic concentration, and they are called as pseudopodia. Got it? So, amoeboid movements by macrophages and leukocytes is affected by pseudopodia. And some special structures like cytoskeletal structures. Cytoskeleton. What is skeleton? Do you have skeleton? Yes. Skeleton is nothing but which helps in providing strength to the inner parts of the body, which provides support to the inner parts of the body. Cytoskeleton means the supporting structures that are there inside the cytoplasm of each and every cell, because every cell has to maintain its shape and size, and also they need certain support. So that support is provided by special cytoskeletal structures called microfilaments, which also performing amoeboid movements. So here this is the macrophage. In this image you can observe macrophage. Macro means the one which is having large size. Phagous means which engulfs or which eats. So macrophages are nothing but certain cells that are present in the blood or inside the body of most of the organisms, and they help in engulfing the microorganisms or pathogens that enter into the body or that invade the body. This process of engulfing a foreign organism or any microorganism is called phagocytosis. That phagocytosis is a kind of defensive mechanism or immune reaction which is exhibited by the macrophages. These macrophages are two types: tissue fixed macrophages and wandering macrophages. Tissue fixed macrophages means which remain in a particular tissue, means for example Kupffer cells. You have already studied the structure of liver in the first unit, that is nutrition in human beings, digestive system. Inside the liver lobule there are certain cells called Kupffer cells. Those Kupffer or Kupffer cells are acting as macrophages or phagocytic cells which are fixed to that particular tissue. They are not moving anywhere inside the body. So tissue fixed macrophages will remain in a particular tissue, and some are wandering macrophages which always wander inside the blood and which always in search of microorganisms that enter into the body or that invade the organism. And second type of structures are the cytoskeletal structures. Here you can see fine thread-like structures, nothing but the microfilaments. Micro means which are microscopic in nature, and they are slender thread-like structures, hence called microfilaments, which act as cytoskeletal structures. These two exhibit amoeboid movements. And also dynein arms act as motor utilizing ATPs in euglena. So let's see how macrophages exhibit amoeboid movement in the body fluids. So you can observe in this video. So this is a large macrophage. You can observe how this is changing its shape by developing certain extensions on the surface, cytoplasmic extensions. And these black colored structures are the microorganisms that are invaded into the bloodstream. So finally, the macrophage has chased the microorganism and it engulfed. It is a kind of defensive mechanism. Second type of movements exhibited by the cells in human body are the ciliary movements. So cilia are nothing but fine microscopic foldings that are present or formed at the free surface of the cells of certain epithelial tissues. So already you have studied in your first year about different epithelial tissues, and one of them is ciliated epithelium. Ciliated epithelium means the epithelial tissue which has cilia or microscopic foldings present on the free edge of the cells. This ciliated epithelium is lining certain organs in our body. By the movement of these microscopic finger-like projections called cilia, they move certain structures from one place to another place. The ciliary movements occur in most of the internal tubular organs like respiratory passages, genital ducts like oviduct, and also ciliary movements are exhibited in the ventricles of the brain. So here you can observe the trachea of or the respiratory passage of human beings is lined by ciliated columnar epithelium, and the oviduct. This is nothing but the fallopian tube. Inside the fallopian tube, the ciliated epithelium is present. By the movement of cilia, the ovum is moved from one place to another place, and finally it enters into the uterus for implantation. And third one, ventricles. Ventricles are nothing but the empty spaces present in the brain. These ventricles are also lined by ciliated epithelium. By the movement of the cilia of this epithelium, which is lining the ventricles of the brain, the cerebrospinal fluid, the flow of cerebrospinal fluid is directed from one place to another place. Is this clear? Next. So just now we have seen two different types of movements exhibited by the cells in human body, that is amoeboid movement and ciliary movement. Third type of movements are nothing but the muscular movements. Muscular movements are exhibited by special types of systems called muscular system, and the other movements exhibited by the body are the movements of bones, nothing but skeletal system. So our topic is Unit 3A, that is musculoskeletal system. What is the main origin of muscular tissue? Muscle tissue or muscular tissue is a specialized tissue of mesodermal in origin. Did you get an idea about this mesoderm? Yes. Human beings are the triploblastic animals. Triploblastic animals means during embryonic development, the embryo is formed by three germ layers. If three germ layers are formed during embryonic development, they will be called triploblastic. If two embryonic germ layers are formed, they will be called diploblastic animals. So obviously human beings are triploblastic with three embryonic germ layers. Those three embryonic germ layers, outer is ectoderm, middle mesoderm, and inner endoderm. So this mesoderm is a main site of origin of the muscular tissue. So what is the origin of muscular tissue? Muscular tissue is mesodermal in origin. This is important for your NEET purpose. Okay, let's talk about muscle tissue. So as the muscle tissue is a specialized tissue, as I told you, and it is mesodermal in origin, about 40 to 50% of the body weight of a human adult is contributed by the muscles. They have special properties such as excitability, contractility. Let's discuss. So total how many number of muscles will be there in a well-developed human being? What is the total number of muscles? Yes, very good. 600. So total number of muscles in human body are 600, and about 40 to 50% of the body weight is contributed by the muscles. So what is the importance of muscular tissue? Why should we have such muscles? So muscles are very important for functioning of many systems, movement of different organs and the organism as a whole, and muscles provide posture to the animal. It provides shape, functioning of heart, blood vessels, etc. Acquisition of food by the movement of mouth parts. So whenever you want to take food into the buccal cavity, the jaws will move. So the movement of jaw is provided by the contraction and relaxation of the muscles. So chewing, swallowing, movement of food all along the length of the alimentary canal is also contributed by the muscles. Expulsion of excretory products of the glands, functioning of the sense organs, and all these functions are controlled by the activity of muscles. Then what about in protozoans like unicellular organisms? Contractile elements in the form of myoneins, and sponges have contractile epithelial cells or myocytes for the closing of osculum. In your first year animal diversity one, you have studied about the sponge, cycon, and you have studied about two different types of pores like osteo and osculum. Osculum is the anterior most part which the opening closes, and opening of that osculum, the exit and entry of the substances takes place. Next, history behind the discovery of physiology of muscle contraction. So ever since the beginning of experimental work in animal biology, the physiology of muscles has formed on the most interesting aspects, forming a large portion of animal physiology. One of the earliest observations on the contraction of muscle was contributed by Luigi Galvani, who fascinated by the twitching of skinned dead frogs' legs against electrical stimuli. So what is mean by twitching? Twitching is nothing but like this. The legs are showing a jerk when the electrical current is passed between the spinal cord and the nerve which is supplied to the thigh muscle in a dead frog. So after discovery of this twitching muscle by providing electricity or electrical current to such organism, the discovery of the muscle contraction was came into light. And secondly, Sir William Bowman, he described the fibrillar nature of the muscles for the first time. And after Bowman, next two scientists, James Fletcher Hopkins and Frederick Gowland Hopkins, they explain the biochemical aspects of muscular contraction by the establishment of lactic acid production. So by the contributions of these four eminent scientists, now we have got complete knowledge regarding the muscle fibers, fibrils and their ultrastructure and also their mechanism of working. So what are the three types of muscles or muscular tissues in human body? So you know that in human body there are three types of muscular tissues, nothing but striated muscle, non-striated muscle and cardiac muscle. So these three muscular tissues you have studied in elaborate way in your lower section, that is in your first year, that is structural organizations unit. Striated muscle is nothing but the one which is showing or exhibiting striations, dark and light striations on its surface. And striated muscles are also called skeletal muscle, which mainly they attach to the skeletal system for their movement. Second type of muscles are non-striated muscles. Non-striated means striations are absent. Strips are absent on the muscle surface. And mostly non-striated muscles are also called smooth muscles, which lines the inner visceral organs or soft organs of the body. And third type, cardiac muscles, which are specialized muscles which are lining only the wall of the heart. They are present only in the wall of the heart, and nowhere we can see inside the body the cardiac muscles. Only the heart is formed by special type of muscles called cardiac muscles. So this is a small gist which I would like to give regarding these three types of muscles. In broad sense, human beings are having three types of muscles: striated muscles, non-striated muscle and cardiac muscle. So what are the properties of muscle tissue? We have different types of muscles and we have seen the importance of muscles, why an organism should have the muscles, and what are the main properties of muscles. Muscles have three special properties. They are excitability, and second one contractility, and third one is a relaxation. So what are the three properties of muscles? First one is excitability or irritability. Excitability is also called irritability. Second one, contractility, and third one is relaxation. What is meant by excitability? So excitability means that the muscles are capable of receiving stimulation. The muscles are capable of receiving stimulation, and they also responding to stimulation from the nerves. They receive stimulation from the nerves. So after receiving stimulation, they respond according to the stimulation. That is called excitability or irritability. And second property of muscles is contractibility or contractility or contractible. After receiving the stimulus from the nerves, whenever the organism wants to move its hand, the organism will get thought in the brain that the organism wants to pick up something. So for picking up something from the ground, the human being has to stretch his hand, again he has to fold his hand. So this is the information is sent from the brain through the nerves to the muscles which are present attaching to the bones of the arm. So that information which is sent to the muscles is called excitability or irritability. After receiving the stimulus, these muscles undergo the shortening. After receiving stimulation, the muscles are capable of contracting or shortening, which we call it as contraction or contractibility. Here you can see in this video, one muscle is contracting, the other muscle is in relaxed position. So that is the third property of the muscles, which is nothing but relaxation. So once the muscle is shortened, once the function is done, okay, once the function is done, immediately the muscles will come to its resting position, and that is called relaxation. What is relaxation? The muscle is able to return to its original resting shape and length after being extended or contracted is called relaxation. Is this clear? So three properties of muscles are excitability or irritability, second one contractility, and third one is relaxation. Next. So as you know that there are three types of muscles in human beings: skeletal muscle or striated muscle, non-striated or smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. But in this unit, we are going to learn in detail the structure of skeletal muscles only, not the smooth muscle, not cardiac muscle, only skeletal muscle we are going to study in detail. Skeletal muscles are nothing but the muscles which are attaching to the bones or skeletal system. So let us examine a skeletal muscle in detail to understand its structure and mechanism of contraction. So this is the skeletal muscle which you are observing in this image. Skeletal muscles are nothing but the muscles which attach to the bones or skeletal system. So each organized skeletal muscle in our body is made of number of muscle bundles or fascicles. You can see here, this is the bone, the brown color structure. To this bone, the muscle is attached with the help of a connective tissue. So the connective tissue that help in attachment of muscles to the bone is called tendon. In your first year, we have studied the difference between tendon and ligament. Tendon is bone to muscle connection. Ligament is bone to bone connection. Bone to bone connections are called ligaments. Bone to muscle connections are called tendons. Here, the muscle is attached to, the skeletal muscle is attached to the bone with the help of a connective tissue called tendon. If you observe the body of this muscle, it is stout and cylindrical in shape. Always this skeletal muscles are cylindrical in shape. And the transverse section of this skeletal muscle is revealing the presence of many bundle of muscle fibers. So each bundle of muscle fiber is called fascicle. Okay. So each bundle of muscle fiber is called a fascicle. 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 So, a skeletal muscle is formed by bundles of muscle fibers called fascicles. And here you can observe all the muscle bundles or fascicles are encircled or enclosed within a connective tissue layer. This connective tissue layer, which is forming the outermost covering of all the bundles, is called epimysium. Okay, epimysium. Then when you observe the fascicle, each bundle is again enclosed by a connective tissue called perimysium. And each bundle or each fascicle is formed by a numerous fibers called muscle fibers. This muscle fiber is again, it is formed by billion of myofibrils. Each myofibril is lined by endomysium. So endo typically refers to the inside or innermost one. So please, I'll repeat again. Note down the point. Outermost covering of the skeletal muscle is covered by epimysium, and each bundle of the skeletal muscle fibers or each fascicle is lined by perimysium. Here you can see this is one fascicle which is lined by perimysium, and this is the epimysium. And each muscle fiber is having many fibers. So inside it is lined by endomysium. Three fascia, all the three layers, epimysium, perimysium and endomysium, all together called fascia. Spelling is Fascia. Next, let us see the ultrastructure of a skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle fiber. So mostly the skeletal muscles are made up of with a protein called collagen. Did you ever heard about this collagen? Yes, in first year itself in structural organizations, you have studied the connective tissues and the different proteins present in the connective tissue, that is elastin protein and collagen protein. Collagen is a fibrous protein which is a constituent of bone, cartilage, tendon, and other connective tissues. And collagen is a chief protein, important protein in the human body, which provides strength and support. So let's talk about the ultrastructure of a skeletal muscle fiber. Each muscle fiber is lined by the plasma membrane. You can observe here the outermost cream colored layer. Each muscle is lined by the plasma membrane called sarcolemma. Okay, so this sarcolemma is enclosing the cytoplasm, and that cytoplasm which is enclosed by the sarcolemma is called sarcoplasm. Sarcoplasm is nothing but the cytoplasm of the muscle fiber. Within the sarcoplasm, the nuclei are present freely floating. Many nuclei are present freely floating within the cytoplasm without any partitions. Because during embryonic development, the cells of the skeletal muscles are fused to form continuation of the nuclear arrangement, and that is called syncytium. Syncytium is a multinucleate condition of a cell without any cell membrane or without any partition is called Syncytium. Here you can see this conical structure or ash colored part which you can observe on the surface of the skeletal muscle fiber are the nuclei. So nuclear condition of skeletal muscle is multinucleate, and that is called syncytium. Please remember this, children. Whereas smooth muscles are having only one nucleus, cardiac muscle cells are having one or two nuclei. But there is no syncytial condition in smooth muscles and cardiac muscles. Only syncytium or syncytial condition or multinucleate condition is seen in skeletal muscle fibers itself. So how the syncytium is formed? It is formed by fusion of embryonic mononucleate myoblasts. Okay, hence the skeletal muscle cells are multinucleate with characteristically peripheral nuclei. Please note down this point, peripheral nuclei. Arrangement of the nuclei is peripheral, means or at the margins of the cytoplasm or immediately below the sarcolemma. And the endoplasmic reticulum that is seen in the skeletal muscle fiber is called sarcoplasmic reticulum. And there are numerous mitochondria scattered in the cytoplasm. Those mitochondria are called sarcosomes. Okay, the endoplasmic reticulum of the skeletal muscle fiber is called sarcoplasmic reticulum. So this sarcoplasmic reticulum is the main storehouse of calcium ions. Remember this. What is the function of sarcoplasmic reticulum? It is a storehouse of calcium ions of skeletal muscle fiber. And the main characteristic feature of the skeletal muscle fiber is the presence of large number of parallelly arranged filaments, large number of parallelly arranged filaments called myofilaments or myofibrils in the sarcoplasm. So you can observe here these brown colored structures are parallelly arranged in the cytoplasm of the skeletal muscle, and they are called myofilaments or myofibrils. So this is the transfer section of a single skeletal muscle fiber. Here you can observe the syncytial condition and peripherally located nuclei, and below the sarcolemma this is the sarcoplasm where the mitochondria are present. The mitochondria of a skeletal muscle are called sarcosomes. Not only the skeletal muscle, even in smooth muscle the mitochondria are called sarcosomes, but more number of mitochondria are present in the skeletal muscles. Okay, and scattering and parallelly arranging in the cytoplasm, there are microscopic filaments called myofilaments or myofibril. We'll see the structure of myofibril. When we take out a myofibril or when we observe microscopic structure of a myofibril, here you can observe certain stripes or bands on the surface of the muscle fibril. These dark and light bands are providing striations. Here also you can observe the striations on the surface of the skeletal muscle. Hence it is called striated muscle or streaked muscle. Each myofibril has alternate dark and light bands in it. So each myofibril has alternate dark and light bands. You can observe in this photographic image, dark and light bands are present. And a detailed study of myofibril has established that the striated appearance is due to the distribution pattern of two proteins. So what is the reason for this dark and light striations on the surface of the skeletal muscle? Because of the presence of two proteins. And those two proteins are called actin and myosin. Here you can observe these blue color lines are representing the protein called myosin, and red color lines are representing the actin protein. So this actin protein is forming the light band. Here you can see the just adjacent to this dark line there is a light portion, So this light portion or light band is provided by the actin protein. And dark band, at the center you can observe this dark band. So this dark band is because of the presence of myosin protein. Okay. Now let's see in detail the light band and dark bands. The light band contains actin and two regulatory proteins called troponin and tropomyosin. So here we can see again in this image. So what is the reason for the appearance of dark and light striations? The light band, now we are talking about this light band which is represented with green colored structure. So this light band is formed by actin and two other regulatory proteins. Here you can see total three proteins are forming the light band or thin filaments. They are actin, troponin, tropomyosin. These three are the proteins that are forming the thin filaments or light band of the skeletal muscle fiber. Okay, and this light band is called I band. What is this light band called? I band. Here you can observe the lighter band is called I band. I band refers to isotropic band. And the dark band, this violet color lines, the dark band is called A band. A band means anisotropic band. Here isotropic means all the filaments that are polarized here are belonging to only one type of protein, that is actin. But here this dark band is formed by two proteins. Here on the edges of this myosin protein, actin proteins or actin filaments are also overlapping to some extent. So because of the presence of two different types of filaments in this A band, it is called anisotropic band. Okay, A band is also called anisotropic band, and this anisotropic band contains a protein called myosin. Remember this, children? A band is formed by thin filament which have actin protein. Along with the actin protein, two regulatory proteins are also present called troponin and tropomyosin. Whereas the central dark band is called A band or anisotropic band, which is formed by myosin protein. Both the proteins, both the actin, this green color lines, actin and myosin proteins are arranged as rod-like structures parallel to each other and also to the longitudinal axis of the myofibrils. These actin filaments are thinner when compared to the myosin filaments. Hence, actin and myosin filaments are commonly called thin and thick filaments respectively. Okay, actin filaments are thinner, relatively thinner when compared to the myosin filaments. Hence, they are called thin and thick filaments respectively. Actin filaments are called thin filaments. Myosin filaments are called thick filaments. So here in the center of this I band, please observe carefully. At the center of this I band, there is a zigzag line. It's dark green color zigzag line you can observe. This is called Z line or zebra line. Okay, because of its Z-like appearance in electron micrographs, it is called Z-line, which bisects the I-band. Bisects means which divides I-band into two portions. And the thin filaments are firmly attached to the Z-line. So this Z-line is also called Krause's membrane, Krause apostrophe S. Krause's membrane or Dobie line. Okay, Dobie line, Krause's membrane or Dobie line. So I'll repeat again. I band is bisected by a Z line or zigzag line. This Z line is also called Crosses membrane or Dubé line, which help in firm attachment of the thin filaments to the Z line. Remember this, what is the line that is bisecting the I band? Z line. Z line is also called Z membrane or Crosses membrane or Dubé line. Next, the thick portion. Coming to the thick portion, I will show in another picture, the previous one. This is very clear. Here, this blue color portion, we call it as thick band or A band. Okay, so the thick filaments are held together in the middle, as thin filaments are held together with the help of the Z line. The same way, the thick filaments are also held together at the middle with the help of M line. Okay, all the thick filaments are arranged at the same level in a muscle fiber, thus giving the characteristic striated or stripped appearance to the muscle. So this, the line to which the thick filaments are firmly attached is called M line, and the line to which thin filaments are firmly attached is called Z line. This M line is also called median line, that is bisecting the thick portion or myosin portion exactly in the middle. Okay. So the A and I bands are arranged alternately throughout the length of the myofibril. Now let's talk about a very important definition, that is sarcomere. What is sarcomere? And one more point I would like to tell you, if you observe here, at the center of this A band, there is a lightened portion. There is a light portion present in the center called H zone or Hansen's zone or H disc. Total, this blue color portion is the A band, which is bisected by M line. At the center, on either side, adjacent to the M line, the A band has thinnermost region. This thinnermost, relatively less darker portion of the A band is called H zone. Please note down this point. The less darker portion of the thick band or A band at the center is called H zone or Hansen's zone or Hansen's disc. Okay. Now, the portion of the myofibril between two successive Z lines. Here one Z line and here is another Z line. Between these two successive Z lines, the portion of the myofibril is called sarcomere. Please remember, my dear students, the portion of the myofibril between two successive Z lines is called sarcomere. What is sarcomere? It is a structural and functional unit of contraction of myofibril. So without this sarcomere and without the Z lines, there is no contraction of myofibrils and no overlapping of thin filaments over thick filaments takes place. Clear? The portion between two Z lines, successive Z lines of a myofibril is called sarcomere, which is the structural and functional unit of contraction. So here you can observe two different sizes of this sarcomere. When the sarcomere or when the muscle is at rest or in resting condition or relaxed state, the edges of the thin filaments encroach into A band. Only the edges of the thin filaments are encroached into the A band on either side and partially overlap the free ends of the thick filament. So these are the free ends of the thick filament. Only the edges of the thin filaments are encroached at the free edges of thick filaments when the muscle is in relaxed or resting condition. And when muscle is undergoing contraction, These thin filaments are dragged over or overlapped in between the myosin filaments, which help in shortening of the muscle. So during contraction of the muscle, the size of the I band decreases, but there is no change in the size of A band. Remember this point, children? During contraction of the muscle fiber, there is a relative decrease in the size of the I band, but no decrease in the size of A band. Size of A band remains as it is, but size of I band decreases. Here you can observe between these two, the above image is showing that the muscle is in relaxed state, and the lowermost image is showing you that the muscle is in contracted state. Clear? So now let's talk about structure of contractile proteins. Just now I told you um, the skeletal muscle is formed by two types of proteins, actin and myosin. So first let's talk about the first contractile protein, that is actin, which is forming the thin filament. This is the actin filament. Each actin filament is made of two F-actin molecules. Each and every point is important for your need purpose, children, and this is important for long question. So each actin filament is made of two F-actin molecules which are helically wound. Helically wound means they are coiled with each other like this. Okay. So two F-actin molecules are helically wound around each other. Each F-actin molecule or each F-actin is a polymer of monomeric G-actin molecules. So what is there in each F-actin molecule? Each F-actin molecule is formed by polymer of globular actin molecules. Globular means you can observe here the proteins that are forming the F filament are spherical in shape or circular in shape. So because of their spherical shape, these protein molecules are called G-actin molecules or globular proteins. And two filaments which are also wound each other together and which are coiled together. Two filaments of another protein. Here you can see light green color molecules. Two filaments of another protein called tropomyosin also run close to the F-actin molecules throughout the length. And a complex protein. Here you can observe here and there on the above and below this each and every coil, there are three specialized proteins clubbed together. A complex protein called troponin is distributed at regular intervals on the tropomyosin. So in simple, I will explain you that actin or thin filament is formed by two F-actin molecules which are in the form of globular proteins. Okay, F-actin molecules are formed by monomers of globular proteins. And two more filaments are coiling these F filaments. They are nothing but the tropomyosin. Regularly arranging on the tropomyosin, a complex protein called troponin. So thin filament is formed by three proteins: actin, troponin, tropomyosin. So I told you that troponin is a complex protein. So because of its complex nature, why this is called complex protein means it is formed by three subunits. Troponin protein is made up of with three polypeptide subunits. They are TNT, TNI and TNC. How many polypeptide units are there in troponin protein? Troponin protein is formed by three polypeptide units or proteins. So those three polypeptide units are TNT, TNI and TNC. They are also called subunits. TNT means the unit or subunit of troponin which binds to tropomyosin. Okay, the subunit of troponin that binds to tropomyosin is TNT subunit. TNI, I refers to inhibits. So this TNI subunit inhibits the myosin binding site of the actin. And TNC subunit can bind to calcium. TNC subunit can bind to calcium during muscular contraction. So when calcium ions are not bound to this TNC subunit, it stabilizes tropomyosin in its blocking position over the active sites of actin. All these things you will get in next upcoming session, that is contraction, that is mechanism of muscle contraction. So basically, actin filament is formed by three proteins: actin, troponin, tropomyosin. Troponin is a complex protein with three polypeptide units: TNT, TNI, and TNC. In simple, I can say TNT subunit is the subunit which binds to troponin, tropomyosin. TNI is an inhibitory subunit. TNC is a subunit which binds to calcium ions during muscle contraction. Is this clear? TNC subunit binds to calcium ions during muscle contraction. TNI subunit is an inhibitory subunit which inhibits the contraction of the muscle and allowing the muscle to relax. And TNT subunit is the one which is attaching to the tropomyosin active sites before the muscle is undergoing contraction. It masks the active sites without exposure. Let's move on. Next, coming to the second protein, that is myosin. So myosin is a motor protein that is able to convert chemical energy in the ATP molecules into mechanical energy. Remember this. What is the main function of myosin? It is a motor protein that is able to convert chemical energy in the ATP molecule into mechanical energy. So what is myosin? What is there here in the myosin filament? Each myosin filament is a polymerized protein. Underline this point, students. Remember, note down, each myosin filament is a polymerized protein. So what is meant by polymerized protein? It consists of polypeptide chains. How many polypeptide chains are present in each myosin filament? Two polypeptide chains are present which wrap around each other. And many monomeric proteins called meromyosins constitute one thick filament. Here you can see this is one thick filament and this is another thick filament. Yellow and green color structures are indicating here the two chains of a myosin filament. So each myosin filament or thick filament is constituting many monomeric proteins called meromyosins. So each meromyosin has, you can observe here, this is one meromyosin. Each meromyosin has two important parts, that is a globular head. This swollen dumbbell-like structure is a globular head with short arm. This short arm is called neck and a long tail. Okay, each meromyosin has three parts. One is globular head, a short arm or neck, and a long tail. The globular head with short arm. So this portion from here to here, the globular head along with the neck or short arm is composed of heavy meromyosin. So means this is called heavy chain. Okay, each myosin filament is formed by two chains. One is heavy chain and the other one is a light chain. Heavy chain is nothing but which is formed by heavy meromyosin. So which portion of the myosin filament is called heavy meromyosin? Globular head and neck portion. These two structures comes under and they're together called heavy meromyosin or heavy chain. The tail portion of this myosin filament is called light meromyosin or light chain. And what is the function of this neck? Why this globular head is attached to the neck region? So this neck or short arm serves as flexible link. So this is a flexible link between head and tail. Okay. So half of the myosin molecules have their heads oriented towards the Z line. So how the thick and thin filaments are organized. Here you can see this is a myosin filament or thick filament and this is an actin filament. So half of the myosin molecules have their heads oriented towards Z membrane and their tail regions are oriented towards the M line. Please remember this. Heads are oriented towards Z line. Tail region is oriented towards M line. Okay, and it means that the tails of all myosin molecules in A band, tails of all myosin molecules in A band are directed towards the M line. Head and short arm projects. So here you can observe here the head and short arms are project outward at regular distances. They always maintain regular distance. Head and the neck regions maintain regular distances and angles from each other. Okay, and they are forming the cross arms between actin and myosin filaments. So, I'll continue this topic in the next session because this would be very heavy. Okay, fine. Let's discuss two more short topics. One is triad system, very important for 2 marks, my dear students. Triad system. So triad system is nothing but the system which is formed by 3 structures. Tri means 3. How many structures are forming the triad system? 3. So what are those 3? Generally, during the development of the muscle, the sarcolemma, the outermost protoplasmic layer, the sarcolemma undergoes invagination. So as the sarcolemma undergoes invagination, it is forming a T-shaped tubule. You can observe here a T-shaped tubule called T-tubule. So one T-tubule, okay, the sarcolemma invaginates into the sarcoplasm and forms transverse tubule or T-tubule at the level of Z line. And this is forming an integrate relation with the terminal cisternae of the endoplasmic reticulum. Here you can see 3 structures are formed here, one T-tubule and 2 terminal cisternae of endoplasmic reticulum together called triad system. This triad system is not similar in all the vertebrates. The position of the triad system is different in non-mammalian vertebrates and in mammals. Do you know the difference between non-mammalian vertebrates and mammals? Vertebrates are classified into 5 classes: fishes, amphibians, reptiles, aves, and mammals. Isn't it? So the vertebrates which do not provide milk or which do not possess mammary glands are called non-mammalian vertebrates. So which animals do not possess mammary glands? Fishes, amphibians, reptiles, and aves. Aves are nothing but the birds. So these 4 groups together called non-mammalian vertebrates. The mammals, the last group, mammals are the mammalian vertebrates. In non-mammalian vertebrates, the T-tubule is formed at the level of Z-line. At the level of Z-line, whereas in mammals, the T-tubule is formed at the junction of A and I bands. So the T-tubule is formed at the junction of A and I bands in mammals, whereas in non-mammalian vertebrates, the T-tubule is formed at the level of Z-line. Next, coming to the motor unit. So motor unit or the motor end plate or neuromuscular junction is nothing but it is a set of motor nerves as well as the muscle fibers. So what is motor unit? Motor unit is a set of motor nerves and the muscle fibers innervated by all the telodendrites. Telodendrites are nothing but the terminal part of the structures of neuron called telodendrites, which constitute motor unit. I'll repeat the definition once again. A motor neuron and the set of muscle fibers innervated by all the telodendrites constitute a motor unit. The junction between motor neuron and the sarcolemma of a muscle fiber is called neuromuscular junction. So you can see here, this is a bouton of a nerve ending and this is the sarcolemma of a muscle fiber. So the junction between a motor neuron and the sarcolemma of a muscle fiber is called neuromuscular junction or motor end plate. And the sarcomere of a striated muscle can be considered as the functional unit of contraction. Already I told you this, the sarcomere is considered as a functional unit of contraction. Okay, students, we'll discuss the next topic in the next class. And thank you very much for the patience listening. In the next class, I would like to cover the mechanism of muscle contraction and muscle fatigue, Cori cycle, and types of muscle fibers. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Like it was very elaborative and detailedly explained. And children, in this muscular system, you have learned about the detailed structure and also the mechanism, how the physiology part is doing, isn't it? So what you have to do is, you have to make a notes, that to running notes, which you all are maintaining for webinars or for zoology. And you have to draw the diagrams with the labelings. Then only you can learn the mechanism more clearly. If suppose madam has taught the lesson in a very good tempo, that is she has revised so many times, isn't it? So if you are not able to follow her still, what you can do is revisit the channel and see that you complete the notes with all the diagrams and the labeling, so that it will be useful for your upcoming exams. So have a great day, children. Thank you very much, Prasanna madam.
Thank you, ma'am.